When you're scrolling through a sea of gaming laptops, the first thing that makes you pause is the question of whether you're getting a machine that actually fits the way you play, and not just a shiny piece of metal with a badge. I've spent a few weeks juggling this HP 15.6-inch FHD IPS touchscreen laptop on a mix of work tasks, a bit of casual gaming, and even a couple of longer sessions with newer titles, trying to see if the specs line up with the everyday experience. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What I'm about to lay out is the kind of practical, no-fluff rundown that helps you decide if the price point feels right for your needs, or if you might be better off saving for a desktop tower or a more aggressive gaming notebook. First off, let's talk about why a lot of buyers hesitate with a device that's marketed as a gaming laptop but carries an AMD Ryzen 7 7730U and integrated Radeon graphics. The Ryzen 7 series chips are built for efficiency rather than raw power. They shine in multitasking, video calls, and typical office workloads, especially with that massive 64 GB of RAM and a 1 TB SSD that wipes away any storage bottlenecks. For gamers, however, the integrated graphics mean you won't be cranking out ultra settings in titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or even consistently hitting 60 frames per second in newer battle royale games. If you're looking for a laptop that can run the latest AAA releases at high settings without a dedicated GPU, you'll probably end up disappointed. That said, the machine does have a few real-world strengths that often get lost in spec sheets. The 15.6-inch Full HD IPS touchscreen is genuinely responsive. I found the touch layer to be accurate enough for quick map navigation in open-world games, and it doubles nicely for creative tasks like sketching or annotating PDFs. The IPS panel delivers decent color consistency, which is a pleasant surprise given the price range. In bright CAF settings, the screen stays readable thanks to decent brightness, though you won't be able to match the vibrancy of a dedicated gaming-grade display with higher refresh rates. Portability is another point where this HP stands out. Weighing roughly 3.5 pounds, it's light enough to slip into a backpack for a commute or a coffee shop session. Battery life, which is often a sore spot for gaming laptops, holds up surprisingly well when you're not pushing the GPU. In my typical day of office apps, web browsing, and a few video calls, I logged around 8 to 9 hours before needing a charger. Throw in a short gaming session of 30 minutes at medium settings, and the battery dropped by about 15%, which is acceptable if you plan to plug in for longer play sessions. Now, let's get into the trade-offs that matter once you start gaming. The integrated Radeon graphics handle indie titles, older games, and esports staples like League of Legends or Valorant without breaking a sweat. You can push those games to 1080p with medium to high settings and still see smooth frame rates. However, when I tested a more demanding title, Resident Evil Village, I had to dial the graphics down to low, and even then the frame rate hovered around 30 frames per second. The laptop's cooling system kicked in, and the fans became audible enough to be noticeable in a quiet room. The heat under the chassis was also tangible after about 20 minutes of sustained gameplay, which meant the keyboard warmed up a bit. If you're used to a quiet, cool laptop for long gaming marathons, this is a point to consider. Keyboard feel is often a make-or-break factor for gamers. The HP uses a fairly standard island-style key layout with a modest travel distance. The keys are responsive enough for typing, but they lack the tactile feedback that dedicated gaming keyboards provide. There's no dedicated macro row or RGB lighting, which is fine if you're not chasing that aesthetic, but it does place this laptop more in the productive gaming category than a hardcore gaming rig. Speaking of productivity, the inclusion of Windows 11 Pro and a lifetime Office 2019 license is a practical perk if you're a student or professional who needs those tools out of the box. The privacy-focused camera shutter and built-in microphone array give you a sense of security for video conferences, something you don't always get with lower-priced laptops. Price is the final piece of the puzzle. At its current price point, you're essentially paying for a high-end ultrabook with a decent amount of RAM and storage, plus a modest gaming capability. Compare that to building a desktop with a Ryzen 7 CPU, a mid-range dedicated GPU, and a 144Hz monitor, you could get significantly better gaming performance for a similar investment, though you'd lose the portability factor entirely. If you value being able to work, study, and game on a single fine and light device, this HP offers a balanced compromise. If your primary goal is to run the latest games at high settings for many hours a day, you'll likely feel the pinch and might be better off looking at a laptop with an NVIDIA RTX series GPU, even if it means